This is an opportunity to become curious.
To learn some things.
How do we help you feel less overwhelmed so you can continue on your journey?
Keep believing in yourself and keep trusting the process. Just be patient.
Well, you are in for a treat today. One of my favorite people is joining me to talk about the Livy Method. She has been researching the Livy Method for the last couple years, and no doubt she has learned a lot. She has found out a lot, and she's going to share a lot with us today, and I could not be more excited about it. Let's welcome Dr. Ruth Kane, everyone. Hello.
Hi, pleased to be here, Gina.
You know, I adore you. I can't love you too much because you and I have to keep our things separate. So I always joke that I try to bribe Ruth all the time. And I cannot do that. She is independently studying the Livy Method on her own. But Ruth, maybe a quick introduction of your introduction into the Livy Method and then a little bit about you for all of our new members.
Okay, hi everyone. Pleasure to be here. First of all, I'm a Kiwi. I'm a New Zealander. I've been in Canada and at Ottawa for 20 years now, as a consequence of falling in love with a Quebecer while cycling in Europe, but that's another story for another day.
I want to hear that one time. I want to hear that one day, Ruth.
So I encountered the Livy Method in 2019, and to cut it short, I was very successful. I had been, like many of our members, a long-term dieter, going from sort of bouncing from one diet to another since I was about 12 years old. I was well over 200 pounds when I started it, and I lost 70 pounds. And the losing process for me was relatively easy, the actual diet. And I'm going to report on some of that from the members shortly. But the challenge for me was understanding, or the curiosity for me as a researcher. I'm a university professor at Ottawa in the Faculty of Education. And the curiosity for me, and why I reached out to yourself and Tony and said, can I study the process, is how you build community online, how you held the community online for 12 weeks, how you interacted online with the community. So to start with, my curiosity was piqued by the idea of you as an educator, you as somebody leading a community online. And it's probably because I was doing a lot of work in the north with Inuit. I was in Nunavik regularly during that year and evaluating their teacher education program. And while up north, I witnessed some fairly hard social issues that the communities are dealing with. And I thought, if we had online solutions to building community and support for social support, be it addictions, be it weight, be it any sort of issues that individuals face but live in disparate, sort of very spread out contexts, maybe I could learn something from the Livy Method. So that was the core of the research application to the SSHRC, Social Sciences and Humanities Council of Canada. And that was how, after a couple of years of playing with it myself, I got the funding, or the team got the funding. So we learned a lot about online teaching and learning from studying the Livy Method, but I couldn't, even though I'm not a health researcher, I'm not a medical researcher, I couldn't leave it at that, because, to go through life like many of the members and not have a positive relationship with your body until the age of 63 is somewhat sad and a missed opportunity. So I thought, I don't want this for other people. So I wanted to dig down and find out. So it was a steep learning curve for me to start reading the medical literature, reading the obesity literature, reading the health literature, and engaging with colleagues at the university who study these things, which has helped the second phases. Yeah.
So where do we start with this conversation? Because I think people, they want to know it works, which of course we know it works, but people want to know, does it actually work? I know that you are really looking into the maintenance piece right now. And I know people are looking for, okay, tell us what you've learned. Tell us what you've learned. What
Yeah.
are the takeaways for the people listening today? I mean, our mission, I think, is to prove the Livy Method works according to the standards that are out there, and to prove, I don't care who we're proving it to. I want to prove it to people that they can lose their weight in a healthy way that they're going to be able to maintain and sustain. And for me, I mean, listen, just talking to Ruth and everything that she's learned, she's not just in a room studying graphs and charts and data. She's talking to our members. How many what is it called when you talk to people?
Focus groups.
Focus groups. How many focus groups have you done?
Oh God, probably well over 300 now that we've done on the weight loss itself, and every focus group has 3 to 6 members. In terms of the sustainability, we've only done one set of focus groups, and that I'll explain why we took a different track with that. But with the weight loss, and maybe if you could pull up that first slide, I'll just show the members the type of consistency and data we've had. And I know this is super difficult to read. It will be in the notes, I believe, afterwards. And I've got it on a larger screen here. But you'll just see that's the heading of the columns is fall 22, winter 23, spring, summer 23, fall 23, winter 24, and spring, summer 24. So that's 6 consecutive sessions. And you'll also notice, if you can read the small print, that the number of people who responded to the survey, this data is only members who were in their first session when they answered the survey. So we may have had 5,000 people respond, but in fall 2022, 3,054 were first-time members. So this is just analysing the responses of those people who were in the Livy Method for the first time. So the age range, the age range is fairly consistent each, and that's why we're so confident that we can put our hands on our hearts and say the Livy Method works, because the data we've collected, group over group over group, from first-time members, so the first time they've encountered it, is so consistent. So they're mainly long-term dieters like myself. 3/4 of them are people who've been who self-identify as people struggling with their weight for many years. The weight loss, it's consistently in the high 90% of people who answer the survey lose weight. So 96%, 94%, 95%, 97%, etc., reading along that line. I was reading the wrong line, but it's still the same, 96, 98. Now, the average weight loss is important. We used to report the pounds lost. And the average loss in terms of pounds is also consistent group after group, and that's between 11 and 12 pounds. So a pound a week is the average. But in the literature, we've got to report the weight loss as a percentage of your original weight. So if I started at 200 pounds and I lost 50 pounds, which I hope you don't lose that in one session, because it's a little bit quick. But if I lost 50 pounds, that would be 25% of my weight. So the percentage of weight loss is very important. And statistically and clinically within the research, a 5% of your body weight is clinically significant, 5% or above. And that's in 6 months. So the figures we're reporting are for 12 weeks, for 3 months. And so you have an average percentage weight loss, 7.5%, 6.7, 7 point. So it's very, very consistent. amongst totally different people. Remember, these are the first timers each time. So they're different people. They're not people who have repeated the session. We analyze their data separately. And so the number of people who met that greater than 5%, that clinically significant, was 3/4 of the people who answered this survey. 3/4, 75, 74.7, 71, 68, 79. So you'll see, thanks guys, you can take that one down. You can see that the data is consistent over time. And that gives us, with different groups of people, that's important, and with thousands of people. Now, the number of people who answer the survey has dropped in the last 2 surveys quite a lot, particularly in the last session. And we think that's just fatigue with surveys. And we'll have a look at it. People are sick of answering surveys. But consistently, and that is why we find the evidence so compelling. Now, to members who are listening, who are first-time members, the data shows that if you are still here in week 6, you're going to stick around to the end. If you stick around to the end, the data shows that you will lose weight unless there's some underlying issues. So I think we're in week 6, are you? I sort of keep in touch with the podcasts, but...
Well, week 7, but this is something like that's not something, I mean, it is a learned experience and people stick around, but this is also, I say it all the time, Ruth, if you were here now in week 6, chances are you're going to be a success story at the end, which I think is really an aha moment, is this is coming from the research. This is coming from statistics, from data that Ruth is sharing. So what we're learning is that the standard is 5% lost in 6 months. People are losing that in 3 months of the program. And some people are losing more. I want to stop you right there and just point out the fact that you do not pick and choose the data that you are collecting. When people fill out the surveys, there are also people sharing that they haven't lost, that they have struggled as well. And you also do focus groups with people. Like Ruth is like, she's hardcore, y'all. She's hardcore. And every time I talk to her, I'm like, oh my God, she's going to tell me the program doesn't work. She's going to tell me this. She's going to tell me that. It's always such positive news, but she very much wants to learn from people who haven't been successful as well. What would you say? I mean, this is probably a loaded question. Are there differences? Like, have you narrowed it down? Like people who are successful and people aren't? What's the difference there?
We do correlation tests on different questions about engagement, because part of the literature that I first sort of jumped into at the beginning was that most diets work if you stick to them. You'll lose weight, full stop. The diets show that. The data shows that. However, people do not stick to diets because most diets are impossible to stick to. They're not good for your health. The deprivation diets, you're not eating enough to sustain your energy and to be healthy. And so people don't stick to them. So there's a whole literature on attrition and dropout and sustainability of staying on a program. And one thing that fascinated me way back in the beginning when I used to meet with Tony and get data from Facebook, the Facebook analytics he used to share with me, and people would check again in week 12, and I forget which one it was way back in 2019, 2020, and say there were 6,000 members, and Tony said to me, oh, well, there's 5,000. I said, no, Tony, it's just people like me who check in 3 times a day. And he said, no, they're individuals. The analytics will show us that there are people consistently checking in week 12, and the retention rates on the Livy Method are phenomenal for people who stay on the program. And we measure that through asking them how often they check in. People who check in every day are more satisfied with the program and lose more weight. Now, they don't lose weight because they check in.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish. I'll just check in and drop a pound. They lose weight because they're engaged. The checking in is just a proxy for engagement. How engaged are you with the community? And it doesn't mean you have to talk on the community or type, or it just means that you're using Gina's check-in videos every morning, the little quick videos, as one of the members told me in a focus group, that anchors my day, gets me off in the right direction. I just listen to the check-in, I'm in the zone, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, the little things people do add up each day. And if you can bring it to the forefront of your mind and be like, yes, I'm focused on this. I'm still doing this. Maybe you have a rock star day, maybe not so much, but you're consistently showing up. How does the Livy Method stack up to other diets? So we were at the Canadian Obesity Summit a few years back, and Ruth was able to do an e-presentation and present what she's learned. And they're like, okay, great, your program works, but prove to us it's maintainable and sustainable. Like that's now what we have to prove, even though all the other ones aren't, but that's fine. We're out to do it. How does the Livy Method stack up? What have you learned about the Livy Method in comparison to other diets?
In comparison with other diets, it's and this is from members from focus groups who have done many, many diets. And we actually interviewed our first sustainability member yesterday. It's really about the engagement, the ability to follow the Livy program and fit it in around your life, fit it in around children, not have to eat anything freaky and weird while you serve your family a regular meal. It is a way of eating that is just a way of healthy eating. There's nothing on the Livy Method, from what my members and from my own knowledge, but from what the members tell me, that makes them feel like they're missing out on something. And one of your guests, and you and I spoke about her at the menopause conference the other day, the guest, not this week, the real people, but last week,
Stacey,
when she spoke about baking and, well, I know what it tastes like, I don't have to taste it. And that sort of struck a chord with you. And it's like that. There's lots of things, like it's that weird and wonderful celebration that as a New Zealander I totally don't get, called Halloween today. I just don't get it. But you guys are all engaging with it and embracing, sort of taking sweets off strangers, which I find a bit odd, but if I'd grown up with it, it might make more sense. But it's that. Do you eat the candy? Don't you eat the candy? It's really no big deal if you do. But you could also say, well, no, I know what it tastes like. It's no big deal. I'm not into it at the moment. Like, that was such a magic statement by Stacey, was it, Stacey?
Yeah, Stacey Naiman.
Yeah. So, but focus group members are telling us it's not deprivation. They don't have to weigh and count and point. But to me, one of the most important things about the Livy Method, without a doubt, is you do the diet, that's fine. But it's what you learn.
Yeah.
It is a community in which you learn with and from each other, with and from experts. And what you do with that learning once it's over is up to you. It's up to you. Either you embrace it, you reach your goal weight, you embrace everything you've learned, and you go on and live your life in a way that's informed by what you learned. Because in every other diet, you follow the diet, you're regimented, you pay attention, you lose your weight, and then you go back to who you were.
Mhm.
and eating the way you don't necessarily learn anything. But in the Livy Method, you're invited to take that learning into your life, to change your practice. And that's a key difference, I think.
What's it been like talking to our members? Like, what's it been like talking to people making real change? Like people, I always say people are, especially when it comes to our guest experts, which are the knowledge. I mean, I love our guests. I always say we look for guests who really have respect for how hard our members are working. Like you are talking to very real people on very real journeys. There's a lot of feelings. There's a lot going on. What's that been like to talk to our members?
I'll use Melanie as an example, who we spoke with yesterday, and we used Melanie with her gracious consent. Typically, it'd be a one-on-one, the sustainability interviews, but yesterday I asked whether my RAs could be there because they're going to be doing a lot of the interviews. So she had 3 people there with her, and after the interview, I said, well, once Melanie had left, we did a training session or a debriefing session. And one of the RAs said, I can't believe how enthusiastic she is. Like, it's a diet. And like she epitomized, as does every member I've talked to, even the ones that are frustrated and haven't lost as much as they would like to have lost, perhaps, or they anticipated. They know something is happening and they are so passionate about the program. And like Justin yesterday, he said that before he sat in on that interview, he was wondering, I said, you'd never have to worry about them talking to you when you're doing the interview, because they've all got a story and they all want to share it. Otherwise, they wouldn't put their hand up to be interviewed. And they're very thoughtful. I think the members who come on our focus groups or come on our interviews have spent a lot of time thinking about what on earth has happened over the last year or 2 years. How has this happened? Because I've been on every diet and it's never happened before. So they're trying to understand. They're really, I think it was Dr. Paul who once said, you've got to be curious. They're really curious about and excited about learning how their body works and making friends with their body instead of most of us who have dieted all our lives. We thought our body was our enemy. We thought our body fought us every step of the way, whereas to know that you can work with your body is a magical thing. So the members are amazing. Like I was at the menopause conference when I talked to Marcel from there the other day. He said, what's it like? And I said, it's strange. People come up and they want to meet you and they want to talk to you and give you a hug, and like total strangers talking to each other. And it's just because they're members of this program. And it's quite magical, I think, to see that community just building and supporting. And and like Gina said, the people we talk to haven't all lost weight. It hasn't all been an easy ride at all. So, but they understand that something is happening and they want to share.
Well, at the end of the day, regardless of the accolades received from the research, I know you are doing it, and I am in love with it because it's all about learning what people need. What's the commonalities between people who are successful, and let's help support people in doing that. What are the commonalities in people who aren't successful, and what do they need, and why? And truly at the end of the day, we want people to be successful. That's it. That's the most important thing that matters. What has surprised you the most through all your research about the Livy Method, dieting in general?
What surprised me the most, I think, as an individual and then sort of as a researcher, is how deeply ingrained the idea of you can count and weigh yourself out of a weight issue, that if you eat less and less and less, like that is a difficult thing to get out of your head, because when I was losing my weight, and it was quite steady over a year and a half, I was probably eating more than I'd eaten previously. I was eating more consistently, but I think it was also Stacey who said what struck her about the way she's eating now is that she craves nutritionally dense foods, like really nutritionally rich foods. And yesterday, Melanie said it's not because she knows they're good for her. It's not that. And it's not because she knows that if I eat this way, I'll keep my weight off. It's because if I eat that way, I'll feel good. And I feel healthy and I feel like I've got energy. So the people who I've spoken to who have lost weight and kept it off, it's all about how they feel. It's not the number on the scale.
Yeah.
They eat differently now, and they loosely follow the program. Like if they eat breakfast, they make sure they eat protein. They make sure they get in healthy fats. They make sure they get in water. They make sure they eat a lot of fiber and greens during the day. But it's not because they think I have to eat this way because this is the way that helped me lose weight.
Yeah.
It's because I want to eat this way. I choose to eat this way because damn, I feel good when I eat like this. So it's not about the weight at the end. And
I
that's
love
easy
that.
to say once you've lost the weight, but losing the weight is the first.
Well, let's talk about the people who haven't. Why don't people lose weight following the Livy Method?
Oh, I'm not medically sort of qualified. There could be lots of medical reasons, perhaps. There could be, I think we all have to be honest with ourselves. I think sometimes we do, especially if you've lost the weight and you may only have just 10 pounds, or which is an awful lot to someone who starts with only 10 pounds to lose. But if you've lost 70, 80 pounds and you have the last 10 pounds, you may get a bit loosey-goosey with the program and let bits and bites back in, start snacking. So you have to be honest with yourself. Are you doing that or not doing it? And some people I've spoken to who have lost their weight and then it's crept back up, or who just can't budge that last bit that they want to lose, they say, oh, but I know why. It's because I'm sort of half-half. What do you call it in French? Moitié, half and half. I'm not really fully into it, but there could be medical reasons. There are drugs that people are on, medications that you end up retaining weight, retaining water. I don't know otherwise. The people I talk to who have struggled to lose weight, there's only been, out of hundreds and hundreds, there's only been one or two, and I think I've directed them to their doctor and to you, or to speak to one of the specialists in your team, because I said, I don't know. You're telling me you're doing everything. I don't know what it is, but over 3 or 4 years, there'd be 3 people like that say, but I'm doing everything and it's just not working at all. And
Well, that's why we had that conversation in the group. Reasons why your weight, like if you're doing all this change and your weight isn't dropping and your body isn't changing, chances are, there are some other things going on.
yeah.
So now you're into maintenance, Ruth. You've just recently done a call out for anyone who's been in maintenance for over a year. What's the point of that? What are you hoping to learn there? I know you've just
Okay.
started.
So we decided after the obesity conference that we had to see, well, okay, we know the Livy Method works. We did that for 3 years of data collection. That's very compelling. How can we tell that? How can we demonstrate whether it is sustainable weight loss? And so I did a series of focus groups in January this year, January and February, because I thought I'd just do the same thing. We'd do focus groups, we'd do a survey. And I did the focus groups, and to be honest, they didn't give me what I was expected, in that there were a number of people who had put weight back on, not all their weight, but it was on its way back up. And I think about a third of the focus group members were struggling in that way. However, they could tell me it's stress, it's this. They could point to exactly why it was, but they were cross with themselves because they'd let it go longer than they hoped. But then there was this group who were just the rock stars, like Melanie, who I spoke to yesterday, who said, no, it's okay, no problem, no problem. And what we couldn't in a focus group go deep enough to find out, well, what are the rock stars doing differently than the others? Maybe they're not experiencing the stress. Maybe they've not got life change and everything. So we went back to the drawing board, and we went back to different research, and we decided to do one-on-one interviews with the people who are maintaining their weight, because the signals from the focus group suggested that these people are living their lives quite differently than they did before they started the Gina method. So, and that points to this learning. They've learned things, they've embraced it, they've taken it into their new life, and they have a new identity. Melanie yesterday said that, oh, and I hope Melanie doesn't mind, I'm naming her here. Whoops. Melanie said that losing the weight was all physical and quite relatively easy for her. She lost up to 30 pounds, I think. Has kept it off for 2.5 years. After losing the weight, it's a head game. She said her body accepted she was 30 pounds lighter. Her mind hadn't adjusted. And she said that takes work. It takes work to be mindful. It takes work to be intentional. I mean, she's just living her life now, but she said, if I eat breakfast, I eat protein. If I have a snack in the morning, I always have fruit. If I feel like fruit, but a lot of it is how she feels. But I think you asked earlier about the difference between this and other diets, and I think that's one of them. I think there's a lot of differences, but you engage people's minds, you engage their thinking, you sort of demand that they get in touch with their bodies. And for a lot of people, like I asked her about the mindfulness and the 4 questions and whether she mastered those in the first session. She goes, like 5 sessions later, she lost her weight in 2 sessions. She's been in maintenance ever since, working on the sustainability questions, the satisfaction questions. How can I tell when my body's satisfied? Because a lot of us who have done really crazy diets, we've worked very hard to ignore the signals that our body naturally gives us if we're hungry, thirsty, tired. We've worked very, very hard to say, no, not interested. I'm not eating, I'm sticking to 1,000 calories. So learning that is very important and may take a little time.
Well, yeah, and I remember having a conversation with you. I love the first of all, I didn't think we needed a maintenance group, let alone now a maintenance program. So for people who are wondering, we do have a maintenance program. So you lose your weight with the Livy Method. We have a maintenance program you can follow with the Livy Method. I remember you saying once that it seemed that the people who took longer to lose their weight actually had an easier time in maintenance than someone who's lost their weight quite quickly in the weight loss program because they've spent more time doing that mental work.
Yeah, they've spent more time doing the mental work. And I mean, if we pay attention to set point theory, it would suggest that your body's had a lot more time to really lock in your new set point, because set point theory has always intrigued me a little bit, because it's always used in the literature about, well, you're at this weight, and take me as an example, you're at 216 pounds. So that's your set point. So if you lose weight, your body will do everything it can to get back to that weight.
Yes.
And my question has always been, well, 20 years ago, I was 150 pounds. Why didn't my body say, no, I'm not going up, I'm going to stay at the same point? But anyway, so, but, you know, if you really adjust, if you give your body time to adjust back to a new norm, and you live your life accordingly and make good choices, you know, have ice cream whenever, but relatively 80% of the time you're making really good choices and that make you feel good, your body will stay there.
Well, it's time. I mean, even talking to the experts at the obesity summit, it's not impossible. It's not impossible to move the dial on the set point, but it takes longer than most people like. And in a world of quick fixes, and it's hard to articulate all the things that you need to do and how you need to lose weight, like the Livy Method, like trying to explain the Livy Method, because, you know, there's a lot of working parts over the 3 months that you do the program, even if you do one program. At the end of the day, it's time. It's losing your weight in a healthy, sustainable way that lowers your set point. It's not impossible, but you know how the world likes to talk in extremes. What do you think we're gonna do here, Ruth? What's the goal? Is the Livy Method going to take over the world? It's going to help people lose weight in a healthy way. How do you feel all these new obesity medications are coming into the market, which obviously we know that's work, and people taking those should absolutely be doing the Livy Method. I just talked to Sandra Elliott and Sandy Van. I'm going to have them come on. I know I mentioned this to you, have a conversation about Ozempic in the program here, because we do have members who are taking Ozempic, always have with managing diabetes. I know there's a whole bunch of other, they're not just Ozempic. There's Wegovy, there's a lot of other ones out there. People have access to them now. That's a whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think some people, they need Ozempic for diabetes. That's without a doubt. We've been using that as a drug for 18 years, I think.
That's nothing new.
And they must continue that if they've got diabetes. For people who use it for weight loss, people have really deep motivations for doing that. And like, I think I get a little bit frustrated when I see influencers and people those sort of people who don't need to lose weight use it, but that's their choice. It's their body. One of the things that worries me about Ozempic, or those sort of drugs, so I'm really interested if you do chat with members who are on it. And I have interviewed a few members who are also on Ozempic and in this, is that the way it works is on your satiety hormones. And so it makes you feel full, so you don't want to eat. So I think if we can do that, I understand that some people need to lose weight quickly for surgeries and things, and so they must do whatever they and their doctor decide. But if you can take the time to do the Livy Method, you will understand your satiety naturally without something intervening the messages from your satiety to your, because basically it's telling you you're full. The drug is telling you you're full. Now, the 4 questions, no matter how frustrating they are at the beginning, and that I thought it was some wacko that Gina had been smoking something the night before she came on live and told us to talk to our stomachs. If we can master that, then we won't need a drug. It will take longer. Yeah. It will take longer. It's just whether you've got the patience and the time to master that mind-body connection. Because I think what you do when you train members in that way, to know when they're full, when they can push away from the table, when they're possibly even doing that and not recognizing that they're already got these signals.
Yeah.
What you're doing is mimicking. If you have 2 or 3 little ones, little children, and you have a household that is privileged enough to give them nice fresh foods and fruit and choice, and even if they have a cupcake and that, they will stop eating when they're satisfied. If they have access to good fresh food without all the additives and preservatives and stimulants in it, they will stop eating when their tummy tells them to stop eating. And so children instinctively know how to do this. We've just interrupted those signals, some of it with all the chemicals and crap we put in highly processed food, and some of it, like in my family, where somebody was dishing up your meal and you had to finish everything on your plate. So, you know, that was a issue of poverty, and mum had to spread out the meals. So that's fine, but you never learned how much to serve yourself. You never learned whether you were satisfied and could walk away from the table, because heaven help you in my family if you did walk away from the table without finishing. That was a no-no. But, you know, those sorts of things, if you are in a family privileged enough to provide for good, healthy, wholesome food, whole food, and allow your children to choose how much they eat of it, they won't have weight problems.
Yeah.
So you're just training us like 2-year-olds.
Well, and this is what I've actually done with my own children, and it's not that they weren't allowed to have candy or those things. I would just explain, or when they overate candy, you feel that way because you've eaten a lot of this, and you know, with my kids, it was always like when they were young, I didn't tell them what to eat, not eat. I would place food out on the table. They would come home, and if they were hungry, they would eat, and if they weren't hungry, they wouldn't eat. And it's, you know, I mean, also they have great genetics and all of that as well. I'm not saying that that's the answer to everything, but people would tell me, oh, you can't, it's impossible. You can't get your kids to eat healthy. I would have my kids want to take food to a birthday party because they knew all that was going to be available was pizza or junk or whatever, and they would be like, I want to bring something that I can actually eat. I mean, this is like children. Now they're teenagers and they'll eat all the candy and all the everything everywhere. But yeah, the point is it runs deep, and we know this from Dr. Beverly. I know you got to get going.
We actually, as members in your group, they have to be patient with themselves. They have to have compassion for themselves and be realistic. Like the Livy Method has never professed to be a quick fix that you can do and run away after 3 months and have lost 100 pounds. That's not good for you. It's not healthy. Like, it takes time and it takes effort. And I think that's one of the important things you said in your talk at the menopause show, and I think it was in response to the facilitator asking you something, and you said these are a group of people who are working hard.
Yeah.
They're not rolling riding a roller coaster of free rides. The members are working hard. This means a lot to them, either for their health, so they can play with their grandchildren, so they can live a long life independently as possible, so they can walk. Like, I've interviewed members who, for the first time ever, this young member, and she was so young, like she was under 40, I think, and she said it was the first time she had been able to buy snow pants in a size that she could put on and play with her kids in the snow. How do you measure that? Like, of course she's motivated to keep going, and of course she's happy and proud of herself for doing it. I mean, it's the capacity, if you embrace all the potential learning of this program, and you're not going to get it the first time. You're going to read or hear Gina say the same thing in the next session if you go, and maybe it will land well with you then, but be patient with yourself, embrace the knowledge, and ask questions. Like, be curious. I think it was Dr. Paul said, be curious. Yeah. I don't know what you asked me.
No, I was gonna ask you that. I was gonna say, I know you got to get going. Ruth is literally getting on a plane and going to Greece, and then going to New Zealand, and going to, I know where you're going, all over the world.
Yeah, I'm going home in a few weeks. Yeah. I'm going to Greece tonight.
Yeah, going to Greece tonight, and then heading to New Zealand, back to New Zealand.
Yeah. I'll
Nice.
be back home.
I was gonna ask you what your final words of wisdom were, but I think you just said it.
Yeah, just embrace, be kind to yourself, but embrace the opportunity to learn. And, in science, people think science is so exact. But some of the science coming out now, and the best ever scientists, and especially in the field of nutrition, are willing to put their hand up and say, we got it wrong. We got it wrong. We told you all to eat low fat. That's a load of rubbish. I'm sorry, but we got it wrong. We thought eating fat made you fat, but it doesn't. And so in science, what's coming out now fully supports the fundamentals of your program. The protein for breakfast, the leafy greens, the fiber, the avoiding ultra-processed food, eating full-fat yogurt, full-fat milk, and avocados, all these things. The science that's coming out fully supports that. So be open as members to say, okay, for the last 20 years, I've bought 1% yogurt. Take a deep breath, trust the science in Gina, and buy full fat yogurt. Like, be open to saying, well, I screwed that up for the last 20 years, but because the evidence is overwhelming now that the science that's coming out does support the Livy Method. And I've got a research assistant at the moment working on trying to create a graphic, and I'll probably need your team's help in the end, with particular points of the Livy Method, like not snacking after dinner, and hyperlinking it to the latest research articles that support that. And we'll get that done. It may take us a couple of months, but that'll be an image that your team can draw on, and we'll put the links to the latest research so people can have confidence why it works.
I love that. And it's about fucking time. It's about fucking time the science caught up with me. And I'm mindful of saying that because I'm not poo-pooing science. Obviously, science is amazing, but there is something to be said about actually working. Because people say, why are you a weight loss expert? I've literally helped so many people, one-on-one, thousands of people. I've learned a lot about what people need and how the body works and all that. And science sometimes takes a while it's science until it's it's the science changes the science.
Yeah.
And it's been a long, hard fought road for me, on the water, on the butter, on the fats, on the this and this, that. But I do recognize there is a lot of quote unquote pseudoscience out there. There's a lot of people selling the snake oil and the quick fixes and all of that. So I get it. But man, and even that moderator, God love her, her stance was like, well, there's a lot of people here. I think she called our members groupies. I took major offense to that. They're not here because of me. They're here because of what they've been able to do. And she thought the conversation was going to be on the pressure to be skinny. Ruth, we ain't trying to be skinny. Man,
No.
we're just trying to fit our ass into our jeans that that fit us, whenever they fit us. We're just trying to play with our grandkids, not drink wine in the morning, try to live our best lives. So every time Ruth tells me about the science that's finally caught up with me, I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, we've got to get that done. We've got big plans here, and like I've talked with Drew and others in your team about a research page. I know members would like to see. We have got an article under review at the moment, and there's another one going. But as soon as those are passed through the peer review process, I will work with, I guess it's Drew or one of your team, to create a research page so people can see. And I'm happy for all this data to be up there.
Okay, so we'll take the data that you've showed, and I know we did used to have a place on our website where you shared your presentation at the Canadian Obesity Summit, and people do ask for it, and we want to show it. We want to show it, y'all.
Yeah.
We want to get it out there. We just send everything to Drew. Drew is like, Drew will do it. Drew will do it.
Yeah. But
okay, Ruth.
There's lots of things about sustainability, and I do have a little chuckle every now and then, Gina, but you mentioned it before that, like, it wasn't so long ago. What was it, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, you were saying, why do people want a maintenance program? Like, what the hell? I've taught you everything Whereas maintenance is where it's at, my girl. So
I was wrong. I'm like science. I was wrong. I was right at the time.
Yeah, no. So just hang in there, everybody. Be kind to yourself. Be open to learning new stuff and ask questions. Like, the team will answer the questions and reach out. And I'll come back and share the sustainability.
Please.
And I'll drink my certified loser cup.
Right with you. Cheers, Ruth. Thank you so much, honestly, for taking the time. I love you. I adore you. I appreciate you. I just am so, every time we chat, I walk away feeling inspired. And you're very real. And that's what I love about you. I can't control you. I can't bribe you. I can't any of those things. You are your own woman.
Yeah.
I love you.
Okay. You're welcome. I love being part of this. And just to reassure members, I do have, and I told Melanie yesterday when I introduced her to the research assistants, their job is to make sure I don't just pick and choose data that I want to show the Livy Method successful. Like, I do not do the statistical analysis. A PhD student does it for me. I'm not very good at statistics. So their job is to pull me up if I'm saying, but that, and they'll say, no, it doesn't show that, Ruth. It shows this. So we are trying to be as rigorous as possible. And even though I'm super happy to come on this and talk and share, the funding comes from the government, not from the Livy Method. So they don't fund any of this. So that's important.
Thank you, Ruth Kane, everyone, the fabulous Ruth Kane. Safe travels. Safe travels. Let us know if you need anything, and we'll chat with you next time. Thanks. Was she not amazing, everyone? Hopefully that you found a lot of good, valuable tidbits in this. Ruth speaks the truth, and we love her for it. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thanks, Ruth. Safe travels.